In the beginning, the Lyrans primarily lived on Mars and Maldek in the constructs that the vegans had built before them. But they didn't like the climate and the atmosphere there as well as the vegans did. So they decided to move down to Earth and do whatever they could to make it comfortable for them, as the Earth atmosphere was at least a little less uncomfortable for them than that of the two other planets. One group moved up to the area that is now Scandinavia, although the landmasses of today do not totally correspond with the ones of ancient times. These Lyrans were the ones who felt the strongest connection with Earth and began to feel a great affinity for the planet they had settled on. They became very connected with nature and all the elements and developed a spiritual mindset. At first, by the time they settled down, they still contributed their DNA to the mix, but soon enough they became less and less interested in participating. Instead, they focused on making Earth their new home. The main genetic experimentation they were involved in was that of taking some Earth genetics and incorporate them into themselves. They still had some problems with adapting to the Earth atmosphere in regard to oxygen content, gravitation field, etc. It became hard for them to operate with their full potential, so they took a small amount of primate DNA and incorporated it into their successive generations. This way, they were eventually able to fully adapt to life on Earth. As time went by, their mentality began to change even more. They felt like they had become more at home here on Earth than on their home planet in the Lyra star system, and they started calling themselves Earth Lyrans, putting Earth in front of Lyra. We are making big jumps in time here on occasion, because all of this happened over a long time period in our terms. While the Earth Lyrans adapted to their new home on Earth, the galactic wars were still raging over their heads, and they found themselves no longer being the only species on Earth. Other ETs, some Lyrans and some Sirians and Orions, were here too at the same time as the Earth Lyrans. One of these alien races were the ones who inhabited Nibiru, the 10th planet which used to orbit Sirius C, but now was a member of our own solar system. Although Nibiru once orbited this particular star in the Sirius system, the Nibiruans, or the Shami as they called themselves in their own language, some say were part Lyrans humanoid and part reptilian Draco hybrids. However, there were other groups and subgroups here too at the same time, working in different parts of the world. The Shami started out in Sumer, modern Iraq, and the southern parts of Africa, where they also dug for gold and precious metals. Some of it to enhance their own declining Nibiruan atmosphere, but also for other reasons we may go into later. They became interested in creating a slave race for themselves rather than to help creating the living library, and they eventually got in great conflict with the original Lyrans, who were busy building the library. The Lyrans were very successful in building the library, and many different energies were brought into existence. Among others, very evolved civilizations emerged from their efforts. The dominant Lyran-human hybrid they had created was androgynous and multidimensional, and also had the Lyran 12-strand DNA activated. This civilization existed for a very long time, from our perspective, and was on its peak around 500,000 years ago. We are not talking about Atlantis or Lemuria, which are more modern than this civilization. If we want to go look for remnants of them today, we have to look under the ice caps of the far southern continent of Antarctica, and some can also be found in modern North Russia. Suddenly, a war broke out in space between the Shami, later in the Sumerian scriptures called the Anunnaki, and the Lyrans. The Anunnaki creator gods raided the Earth around 300,000 years ago, while the human civilization in Antarctica and Russia were still in their fullest. This time period is considered the beginning of human civilization, but in fact it was only the beginning of something new and the death of something older and much more benevolent and evolved. Eventually, after long and bitter battles over real estate Earth, the original planners lost the war. Darkness had defeated light and Earth became the territory of the Anunnaki. Some of these battles extended to Earth herself, developing into atomic wars. the Lyrans, defeated, were forced to leave the solar system.